Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar, Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce, and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on Twitter at DisrupTV Show. Send us your questions using hashtag DisrupTV, and Alan, myself, and our distinguished guests will do our best to answer you live, and we'll certainly follow up after the show. My good friend and regular co-host, Ray Wong, is on his way to Davos for the World Economic Forum. So we have our favorite and most popular substitute co-host for DisrupTV joining us, Alan Lepofsky. Alan is Vice President and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, where he covers the collaboration software industry. He has 20 years of experience in the software industry, so he clearly started out when he was 15. And Alan helps companies understand how to develop and implement collaboration solutions that help employees get their work done and done fast and smart, best way to serve customers. He is an influential blogger, keynote speaker, and a must follow on Twitter at ALANLEPO, Alan Lepo. Alan, welcome to DisrupTV.
Hey, Vala, good to see you as always. Thank you for a favorite guest co-host is better than bringing in the second stringer. I like that. Thanks.
No, you are one of the best. I'm pretty sure if I ever have to do something else, Ray's going to have you jump in as the permanent co-host. So
I love being here. Thanks for having me, and I can't wait to talk to all three of today's guests. It's an honor and a privilege.
Our first guest is one of my favorite people, and it's a privilege for us to have Angela Blanchard, President Emerita of Baker Ripley and Senior Fellow at Brown University. Angela is globally recognized expert practitioner in community development, disaster recovery, and effective long-term integration for immigrants and refugees. What an incredible person. The world needs more Angelas today. Angela received the 22nd Heinz Award in the human condition category for creating a transformative model of community development that has become a powerful and positive model for cities looking to thrive in the midst of complex demographic and social change. Angela's breakthrough strategies have successfully revitalized neighborhoods by leveraging Houston's diversity while providing a powerful model for cities across the globe facing the complex challenges of community transformation. Under Angela's leadership, for more than 30 years, Baker Ripley became the largest community development organization in Texas and among the top 1% of charitable groups nationwide. It currently serves more than 500,000 people in 48 countries and operates with an annual budget of $250 million. Angela has been profiled in New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Atlantic, Fast Company, CNN, NPR, and so much more. She is recently appointed the non-resident senior fellow in the Centennial Scholar Initiative at the Brookings Institute in Washington, D.C. She's another fantastic follow on Twitter because her stream kind of feeds the soul and makes you a better person at CAJUNANGELA, Cajun Angela. Angela, welcome to DisrupTV.
Thank you. I think the only person that really enjoyed that perhaps was my mother. But I
had such a hard time cutting your bio. I had such a hard time shortening it to a minute. You've done so much.
Expert practitioner, community development. That's it. That's all. So I'm so glad to see you.
So happy that you're here. So happy. Alan, please.
Sure thing. So Angela, let's, Vala's unbelievable introduction aside, I know they're always fantastic. Why don't you take a minute? Like you said, you shortened it down to, community builder. For those that are new to following what you're doing, I love watching your TED Talks and some of the other videos that are out there. I could spend the next 45 minutes just asking you about 3 or 4 of the phrases that I've written down about what you do. But why don't you start off with just a minute or two telling us in general the background of what it is you're doing and which communities you're helping to reshape.
So my passion really is to see the realization of human potential. And I think we work through cities, and especially now, cities are destinations. There are massive inflows of people. cities being shaped by migration, by urbanization, by climate change. And in every city, we have this challenge of how do we welcome and integrate? How do we create on-ramps, landing places and on-ramps for the newly arrived so that we keep a constant flow, we keep that constant flow of people engaged, and we keep them connected, and we can make sure that what they have to offer can be valued in every city. So the way I have gone about that work is to work with communities and neighborhoods, with the people themselves. There's a practice of appreciative inquiry, which is how we take a deep dive into finding out what matters most to people and how that shapes what they long for and hunger for. And then side by side in these communities, we draw investment in to create, to bring to life the things that they're trying to accomplish in their lives. We shorten it. We say everyone wants to earn, learn, and belong. And we try to make that possible in every city.
So everyone wants to earn, learn, and belong.
Universal human hungers.
Well, those are beautiful. One of the ways you summarize that in one of your talks is that, as you say, these new people are coming in, they have needs, and we wrongfully too often ask them the questions of, what do you want? What do you need? And you framed it in this idea of people don't want a handout. They want to be part of the story. And hearing you talk about that, I was just like, oh my, I can think of how many times in my life, let alone refugee status, just at work, how you can apply that point of view to something.
Well, I think in general, all the old constructs that we've created that are deficit model thinking. So let's look at you, for example, Alan, and instead of being thrilled at your contributions about how work is being redefined, how we're reshaping the world in all these different ways in terms of how people offer people do earn. We said instead, let's look at how you're not quite getting it right. Let's give it an examination of how you're not measuring up. Let's create some paradigm spreadsheet, some set of metrics, and then we'll measure you against those. Not you ideally and what you have to offer, but you against a set of metrics that you'll never meet. And that's utterly demoralizing. So why would we apply that to vulnerable communities? Why would we walk into a community in colonizing fashion, announcing that, oh, it would be great if you all took care of your health in this way, educated your children in this way, went about in your business startups in this way, instead of going in to discover what's there, what's working, what have people created for themselves out of their own deep desire and out of their own imagination. And then let's work to leverage that. Let's work to support and enable that they have created for themselves. People don't support things that don't include them.
That's very well said.
Yeah.
You wrote a post about time.
Yeah.
And you said time passes differently for the privileged than for the neglected.
Yeah.
Time haunts those of us working to nurture the world into a more caring place. Time rules us as we work for fairness, justice, and kindness.
Yeah.
Think about how much time you have to spend working with elected officials and other entities to help inspire them to have empathy for disruption and people that have been displaced.
Yeah.
We're in a period of the longest government shutdown as we speak. Yeah. How do you work?
Disruption. Yeah.
Big disruption. Some would argue manufactured disruption with real consequences. But how do you spend time, exhausting time, to work with government officials to build consensus and actually create value in a time of chaos and disruption?
Well, first of all, I think if we're working from an appreciative place, it means I'm going to have empathy and an appreciation of their circumstances as well. This is a person who's taken a job I wouldn't do under any circumstances, and they have a finite amount of time. They have a term of office, and they're very clear that within that framework that's the framework within which they have to act. So I need to bring them those things that can be acted upon with the power they have in the framework they're working in. This is a kind of sensitivity and respect for circumstances. It's born of something I call, I think is a major leadership talent called improvisation. So if you get the best improvisers, they work with what's in the room. Every response they have to a prompt is yes and how might we use this, and how might we further this, and what's available within the arena that we can use to move this forward. So it's not coming at someone in an aggressive way, trying to move them and push them in your direction, but it's understanding and working with the situation so that you can avail yourself of the opportunities that will work for both of you. So it's me bringing them things they actually can. The worst thing that can happen to us, of course, we've all felt it. Someone comes to us, passionately pours out a need, a desire, something they really could use their help with, and it's not something we can do. We have no power. We are not in that arena. So it's being thoughtful about how we approach people that can contribute, that can further what we're trying to accomplish.
Well, Angela, that thoughtfulness you talk a lot about as being a very key leadership role. I think you've said, leaders have to be people that can step in and even see empathy for things that happened before they got there, things outside of their scope. Yeah. Talk to us about, for our audience who, may not all be working in community development, but running organizations, what advice do you give to CEOs? So instead of, what should they know about that empathy and that ability to help things that have happened?
Well, all the advice I give to CEOs, I learned from refugees and immigrants and displaced people, because displacement is a powerful lesson in life and it's a grounding lesson. You're wiser for having made it across that gulf from one shore to the next. So improvisation is an important piece of advice for CEOs, because you have to pay attention to the arena you're in, search it for what's happening, use what's available, which leads to the second bit of advice. You've got to be a constant student of resources, assets, and strengths within your company, within your community, because the unexpected will happen. And a clear inventory of what you have to work with is you're going to be your starting place for responding to disruption. The third thing is all about relationships. And we're keen on networks, and we are metric driven, and we tend to think the sheer number is important, but what's really important is how deep the trust goes with the individuals with whom you work regularly. Because when, again, the unexpected, the most demanding things happen, your ability to respond is going to center around, if you're going to move at the speed of trust. And that trust is going to be based on how well we understand what matters to each other, what we deeply care about, and what we're really profoundly capable of doing. And I think just the fourth thing, it's so important. We like to talk about diversity and inclusiveness and a whole bunch of other things that start with how we're different. And starting with the art of welcome. The fourth thing is the art of welcome. As we move through this dynamic world in which people are moving about the world, moving in and out of companies, we're working with collaborators, partners, friends. Art of welcome, how do we tend and befriend so that we have authentic connections? And I think those are, those are the four big pieces of advice. You've got to be good at improvisation. You have to be a student of what works and understand the resources you have, constantly monitoring that, build your relationships, and master the art of welcome with all the rituals of food and friendship that bring us closer together.
I have about 1 million tweets. I just want to let my Twitter network know there's going to be lots of Angela tweets.
Well, I've heard I'm tweetable, but it actually comes from being Cajun. You may
be the most tweetable guest we've ever had. So yeah, but this notion of inclusiveness, I love the phrase "moving at the speed of trust," and being self-taught and aware and interested. I think a lot of that is planted in terms of humility, and humility also speaks to admitting when you're wrong. And you wrote another post in terms of the power of saying I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And you said the power of I'm sorry is to open the door to a different relationship with the past and with one another today. Deep regret is not a quagmire. It's the solid foundation of which new structure of togetherness can be built.
Yeah.
My question is, by the way, you're a beautiful writer. It's like poetry.
If I can just get more than 240 characters on the page.
You are, I mean, I get goosebumps reading your work. Can you teach humility?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that that's the beauty of disruption and displacement, is that it reminds you of how profoundly vulnerable and human we are. And we're all castaways on this planet, essentially here as trying to make our way and make some meaning while we do it. And the message for leaders in the I'm sorry, that lesson is so important. We all stand on sacred ground, often blood-soaked, and where there's been great suffering and great struggle and great strife that came before. Even in the mildest fashion, inside of a company, what you're birthing today is also on the grounds of what you're saying goodbye to. And I see a lot of companies where and a lot of groups and communities where there's been this inability to simply acknowledge the passing of something that may have meant a lot to some people, and we're glad to say goodbye to it at this point. We know it should go, but people put their time and effort into that, and that acknowledgement within a company that was worthwhile, even though we're moving on, actually does more to keep people engaged. When we tell people move past, get over, without getting into it, it doesn't heal. We diminish the amount they're willing to trust and commit going forward. So you see this in a more brutal fashion in communities where there's actually been these terrible tragedies and this deep violent act that impacted everyone. And at that point, as a leader, you are walking in and standing on the ground where that happened. You must be able to know that while you may not be at fault, you're standing there today, you are responsible. And that owning the responsibility for what came before, even when you didn't directly act upon it, it takes you have to have a strong backbone and be much more concerned about everybody else than you are for yourself.
Owning and being responsible for what's come before. That's something I think I need to work on, even in my life. So thank you, just for inspiring me, let alone hopefully everybody else on this call. And you're so open and transparent about where some of this background of your knowledge comes from. You talk about your upbringing and your family and the home you lived in with your siblings and things. And you said a phrase that I absolutely adore. You said you need to create, or it was something your parents, I believe, taught you or you learned from them, create a life from imagination.
Yeah. And,
I can't think of anything I'd rather sort of be able to do on a cold wintry day here in Toronto. Talk to us about that for a moment, how that applies to all these people coming in. And you mentioned the hardships and the gaps they have to go through to get to this wonderful state. How do you teach these refugees and these new citizens how to create a life from imagination?
Oh, no, you got that backwards. Because this is really, Vala and I had a wonderful conversation at one point about his family. A few of us sitting here today, we're all descendants of the people that survived everything, everything the world can throw at you. We're here because they made it through. And what displaced people teach us is, what it's like to start over without any of these props that we're used to, without the stage all being set, without the mirrors all around us that remind us of who we are. So they teach us what it's like to stand on a ground that's in some way where everything's been washed or burnt away, and imagine what would be possible. And doing what they can with what they have, they take each step forward. And they're crafting literally a new life, born of their imagination, but using what's in the arena. So these are the lessons you learn from displaced people, and that's why they're so valuable in every community. What drew them to us was imagination, was a sense of purpose, and the conviction that somehow on the other side, on the next shore, there'd be somebody first there welcome them, to pull them ashore. And second, that with what's available there, they could build a new life. They only know it from their imagination. And my parents were a great example of that. Virtually everything they tried to create from us, they did from their imagination, because neither of them had a childhood they wanted to repeat. They wanted us to have a completely different life. And yeah.
That's amazing. Angela, thank you so much for spending a Friday afternoon with us on DisrupTV. Please, everyone, follow Angela on Twitter at Cajun Angela and read her blogs. It will make you a better person. Thank you so much, Angela.
Thank you very much. Y'all have been wonderful. I appreciate being with you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Wow. Alan, now you know why Ray and Alan, Friday afternoons is our favorite time of the week. And
yeah, no, it's to be able to speak to someone so inspirational. It's amazing, and to learn. This isn't about entertaining; it's about learning. And I feel like a better person in 15 minutes.